Recording in progress.
Services District. I'm Carrie Topliff, Vice President, standing in for Marcus Aguilar, who'll be here in a few minutes. And I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and do a roll call.
Director Topliff,
Here.
Director Brandt, here, Director Craig,
Yes.
Director Schultz,
Here.
Aguilar and Freeman are going to be here.
Super. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. I'll move us along to the consent agenda, where 2.1 is approval of the minutes of the April 25th regular meeting. Do I have a motion? I will move to approve the minutes. Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
002 or 02, yeah.
4002. Okay. Then also approval of $10,738.98 to Alshire Winder LLP for April legal services. We'll smile at Ross as we approve that. Thank you for your service.
That was all part of the consent agenda.
Okay, so we did.
You're done,
that.
right? Yeah, you did that, right?
Sorry. I'm just a sub here. Now we'll move along to the public comment period where any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Directors that are not on our agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda, except as provided by law. Would anyone like to speak? Anyone in Zoom land like to speak? Seeing no takers, I'll move us along to discussion action item number 4.1, which is the community garden annual report.
You allow me to finish it.
And Katie, you'll introduce yourself.
Where would you like me to sit?
You can do it anywhere you'd like. I think our camera is very versatile. It'll follow you around.
Okay. So my name is Katie Maynard. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the advisor for the Edible Campus program and director of campus sustainability at IVCSD. And I'd like to introduce our team before we get started.
Hello, my name is Maria Silva, she, her pronouns. I'm the garden coordinator here at the Ivy Community Center.
Hi, my name is Grace. I'm the volunteer coordinator for the Edible Campus program, and my pronouns are she, her.
And I believe we have Viviana that's on our Zoom. Viviana, could you come off mute and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Viviana, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm the garden coordinator for the Methodist Community Garden.
And Danielle Bullinger.
Hi, my name's Danielle. I use she, her pronouns as well, and I am a garden educator intern.
And we also have our pastor, Frank, today.
Yes, I am here. I'm Pastor Frank from the University United Methodist Church and the Methodist Garden.
And John. John, are you able to come off mute and introduce yourself? Okay, John may be figuring that out, but John does all of our accounting work for the Methodist Garden as well, and we're pleased to have him here today. So with that, we can go ahead to our slide deck.
We'll get it up. It just won't be on the.
Yeah, I'm like, get the angle. All right, so There we go. I'd like to start by just introducing a little bit about the Edible Campus program and some of our mission. So what we aim to do is to take underutilized spaces and to be able to grow food in those spaces for our community, to bring the community together and create a sense of pride within the community. Can you go to the second slide? Thank you. So we aim to make food affordable, accessible, and inclusive, to really support folks that have never grown any food before, to have an idea, to have an opportunity to try planting something, see how it grows, and to see that plant go, and to know that it's okay if it works or if it doesn't work, but just to be able to have that space to sort of play in the garden. We're trying to engage community members all across the spectrum of Isla Vista, including UCSD students, SBC students, long-term residents, folks from the houseless community. We do a lot of partnerships with the YMCA across the street and with our families. And so really trying to bring all of the different aspects of the community together in a multi-generational space. We had 341 volunteers over this past year, and that's not even including all of our spring numbers, which are still coming in. And then we had 1,620 students in total touched by our program when you include all of our workshops as well. You can go to the next slide.
Sorry.
It's okay.
My Mac doesn't like the share screen or the double screen. There it is.
Okay.
There it is.
Great. Okay, so I really want to talk about our partnerships. A lot of the work that we do and why we're able to do this program on such a low budget is because we do a lot in partnerships. So you've already seen on the call today, we have very strong partnerships with the University United Methodist Church and also our St. Michael's Church as well. And so those congregations really help to support the work that we do. We also have our composting management by your own Isla Vista Compost Collective. And we also have site support from the Isla Vista Community Center. In particular, we work very closely with Maya on the Community Center Garden here. We also co-host events with a number of different organizations locally, and some of those you can see on the slide here. We've done events in the past year with Pescadero Lofts, St. George's Youth Center, Isla Vista Youth Projects, Isla Vista Food Forest, Isla Vista Recreation and Parks District, Isla Vista Compost Collective, Isla Vista Community Relations Committee, Black Women's Health Collaborative, and a large number of student organizations as well. Next slide. These are just some of our high-level accomplishments from this past year. So we've rebuilt the soil at the Isla Vista Community Center, and then we're able to plant and fully launch the garden here at the Community Center. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. I'll show you some maps of where we've planted out. We've pivoted to new garden plans to accommodate the county's feedback and shifting from the original location we looked at for the Isla Vista Community Center. We built out 7 additional beds at the Methodist Community Church garden, and we also increased participation in our educational programs by 25% since last year's numbers that we reported to you. We have also offered 267 total events over the past year, just since July 1st of 2022. We continue to offer our Saturday morning live program. This is every Saturday. We meet at the Isla Vista Food Co-op right here in downtown Isla Vista, pull the community together, and then we walk from Isla Vista Food Co-op to one of the different gardens throughout Isla Vista, and then we volunteer at the garden from 11 to 1. That consistency of the Saturday morning live has really helped us to draw a large number of people on a consistent basis to that program. In addition to that, our volunteer coordinator, Grace, sets up weekly volunteer events at each of our gardens. And so we'll often have anywhere between 1 and 3 volunteers come at a time, a couple of times a week to water, to weed, just to take care of the garden. We have a lot of students who really love that break in the day to be able to do something with low responsibility, nothing too complicated, but just be able to help out and spend time in the garden at the same time while getting some other hours for the honors program or other volunteer-based programs as well. In addition to that, we've been doing a lot of partnership with student organizations and other community-based groups where we do hosted volunteer days. So just this past weekend, we worked with the Latinx Business Association and the Women's Commission and hosted events sort of specific to their organizations at the different gardens in Isla Vista as well. I think we did 3 total volunteer events over 2 days this weekend. That's a pretty typical weekend for us. Go ahead to the next slide. So I did want to talk just a little bit about the Isla Vista Community Center and the space that's there. So the blue triangle is what you all know as the Isla Vista Community Services District managed space, currently owned by the county. So go ahead to the next slide. So this is what we had originally proposed as what we were going to plant out for the Isla Vista Community Services District. And go ahead to the next slide. What we've planted out so far, we did not plant along the street side because that was what the county had asked us to actually pull back from based on some modifications that they wanted to make to the building. We did add 2 additional beds closer to the parking lot. This one we have access to half of the space. This one we have full access to the space. And then it wasn't originally marked, but there's also a little bed on the back side that we've planted out as well. Works really well for herbs. And then these 2 don't exist yet, but are going to be going in. One of the things that was original idea from Maya and her interns was to also do some raised beds on the pavement portion of the patio in the back. So we have purchased, I believe those have been purchased, and we're sort of waiting for those to come in right now. And our garden coordinator, Maria, was able to help select those bins. So those are going in as well. Next slide. And so, sorry, go back. Yeah, the yellow box. Okay, so this is the space that we had talked about as a standalone garden that would go out in the lawn area. It would be tucked up towards the clinic building, allowing for large festival events and activities in the field, so it wouldn't disrupt activities there. That was something we really heard from a lot of Isla Vista Community Center user groups, is that they really wanted to keep most of the field open. So we're kind of looking to tuck into that space. It's actually quite a large space. So just that yellow box there is 47 feet by 26 feet. So there's really a lot of opportunity to work there. And go to the next slide. So this is what we're proposing for the space. So in the upper picture on the right is the types of raised beds that you can see in that kind of corner formation. So that'll make up the corners of the 4 bins. We did want to have something a little bit more circular in the center, and we're playing with ideas for that because one of the challenges is circles are a lot harder to make out of wood, especially for a volunteer-based program and not a group of carpenters. But we did find some good designs that we could do with kind of a hexagonal shape. So we are proposing that for the 2 center bins to get a little bit more of a flow through the space. And then the 4 blue boxes in the center will be benches, as you can see in the pictures there as well. We really wanted it to also be a gathering space and a coming together. In this garden, it will be a little bit different than our other gardens in that we want it to be more ADA accessible, have a little bit more of a flatter surface, be a little bit tighter maintained than the other 2 gardens, where we have more narrow pathways as more of a typical community garden structure. Since this was going to be so highly visible, we want to make this a little bit of a tighter representation and focus on the aesthetics a little bit more in the space while keeping those walkways wide as well. We are not proposing any type of fencing around the externals of this garden. Go ahead to the next slide. So this is our budget that we had from last year, and just kind of an update of the allocation, the spend to date, and the percentage of spend. We have had some of our interns have gone through just some life things that had nothing to do with the internship, but caused them to work less hours, or some places where we had some turnover. So we did have a decrease in spend within our garden intern budget. We are almost at full spend out on both the operations and education budget. On water, we saved a little bit because of the big rains this year. And also we had a little bit of savings last year, so we didn't start paying for the water bill until early fall rather than right on July 1st. So those are the changes there. If you go to the next slide. So one of the things I really want to emphasize about our budget is how much in-kind and matching support comes in for this budget. So all administrative support is handled by the Methodist Garden with no reimbursement requested from the Isla Vista CSD or any of our donors. During December and different breaks, when it's really hard to find volunteers, and even when our interns are going home for the holidays, we get a lot of support from the church, who actually has their congregation come out and maintain the garden through December. On the following are also support that we get directly from IVCSD that is not that there's no reimbursement for. So that includes the grant management and further fundraising, diversified funding support. So we actually do receive funding from several different donors and grants. intern recruitment, training and supervision, volunteer recruitment and management. Grace's position. She's works 15 hours a week to make sure we have volunteers at all of our gardens, and that's something that's not doesn't have to be paid for by the community services district. 5 additional education outreach interns who frequently do additional programming at both our Methodist and Isla Vista Community Center. Danielle Bollinger is one of our in-kind matching interns that's here today. Also additional educational supplies, materials, and tool and resource sharing across our gardens. So a lot of things that are coming in free to the community services district for this project. Next slide. Okay, so I mentioned that we hadn't fully spent out the budget for this year. So this is our plan to spend out by July 1st, really by June 30th. So we do still need to pay our garden interns through June 30th. So some of the budget is still dedicated through that. We also have some small operational supplies that we are still anticipating before the end of the year. We do still need some water for our April, May, and June budgets. We'll have a water bill coming in for those 3. And then we'd like to split the remaining dollars that are available between providing some additional support to the Isla Vista Compost Collective for some of the improvements that they'd like to see at the Methodist compost bins. And so we've met with them, discussed those recommendations and changes, and we're going to be implementing, and we are supporting we've come up with a plan together that we can support. And we are also would like to use some of our budget to support what they've asked for. In addition to that, we'd like to use the remaining bit of funding to allocate towards the new garden here at the community center in the open space. So we would be taking some funding from this and some funding from next year's budget to cover the new space. If you go to the next slide. So then this is our budget proposal for next year. So the garden operations coordinators, we'd like to move from 2 garden operations coordinators to 3, which will reflect the larger space that we're now taking, that we would now be taking at the Isla Vista Community Center, and also just allowing us to have a little bit more redundancy and sharing between the 2 gardens that we have supported here. We'll continue with our outreach coordinator. The water bill, education operations are pretty much the same. And then the expanding item. So there's a $15,000 line item here that would help us to expand out the garden here. That'll be a one-time cost. So in future years, we'd go back to a $30,000 budget. This year, so last year was a $30,000 budget. This year is, think of it as a $30,000 budget plus a one-time $15,000 to support the new garden. And that makes up our total budget for this year. And I think last slide is questions. Yeah. Let me take a quick break just to check in with our interns, see if there's anything else you would like to add.
So I'd actually like to speak about my position in particular. One of the unique things about my position is, so I'm the garden coordinator at the IV Community Center, and we were starting there from scratch. For those of you familiar with the area, if you've been around there before mid-October, the soil is very compact, very grainy. There was really nothing growing. There was even weeds were non-existent in that space, but since there was no weeds. But since mid-October, when I started my internship, I've actually been working to bring life back into that space. So initially, the first few weeks, that meant watering the space consistently, which might seem maybe a bit silly, but watering the space really allowed for us to soften the soil, reintroduce those nutrients to the space, and actually start developing that garden to where it is now. Like looking at it today, like since mid-October to now, there's been a few harvests since fall, winter. Currently, we're growing melons, kale, a variety of herbs, bell peppers. I actually ask a lot of my volunteers that Grace helps with, and a lot of the community I engage with, what kind of things they'd like to see in that space. So recently, someone requested strawberries and bell peppers. I'm working on setting up starts for the new harvest, and I'll be integrating those ideas into the garden as well. Aside from managing the garden itself, I think one of the challenging things I experienced was actually developing the garden designs for the open space, but it allowed me to explore more of the creative side of things. And it's in part like, okay, so setting the new garden, but actually designing a space Katie mentioned was the aesthetics and making it accessible. So it's okay, taking it a step further, like, how do we make this accessible for everyone? What are the things that everyone wants to see? And you'll see those ideas reflected in the plan. Aside from that, I'd say one last thing. I think personally, one of my favorite things about this internship has been engaging with the community itself. I actually work specifically on Tuesdays from 11 to 1, which is when Mary has her group come in and they're feeding a lot of the community members. And I've developed a really good relationship with Mary. And a lot of the people who come in day-to-day, weekly, and it's been personally one of my favorite things out of this internship, talking with everyone, also with a lot of the people, the businesses here next door. So nonstop, like I say hello to them, the workers, the business owners, they know me. It's been a really good dynamic in developing that relationship. And that's personally my favorite thing out of this internship.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Maria when it comes to the garden. Everything is very like volunteer, or like the community basically represents the garden, which I really like. So like when it comes to community needs or wants, when it comes to the garden, it's really reflected when it comes to how it looks. For example, for Methodist Garden, a lot of our volunteers that we get usually like, you know, walk by the street. It's like a little corner and they see all these beautiful vegetables. They're like, how can I get involved? And I just think that aspect of it is really beautiful. Also, I like run the Saturday morning lives, which we meet at the IV co-op every Saturday at 10:45. And I'd say definitely for the turnout when it comes to the garden specifically in IV, there's a lot more people just because it's more accessible to the community as well, which I really like. And we also connect, like what Katie said, I connect with a lot of student organizations, community organizations, and it's just really fun coming together. It just feels like a really fun process with that. I was fun. Yeah, it's really fun.
And my last comment, I'd like to invite Frank briefly to just share a perspective from the Methodist Church.
Yeah, so we are so grateful for the district services committee, to the district services committee, to Katie, the volunteers, our staff in the garden. It's just been an exciting journey to see, you know, this what used to be the sand pit, actually this dump, to be turned into this oasis right in the middle of Isla Vista. Incredible stories I could share about how community is happening in this garden, how people are just flocking to it and taking ownership in it, you know. And how many times have I met people that are food insecure and that are harvesting, and some are not even sure, are we allowed to take this? Oh yes, absolutely. And people that come because they want to see if what they planted actually came to fruition, and then they just stand there and they just say, "This, I planted this. I planted this." It's just an amazing experience. I mean, to me, it's kind of like a miracle, you know, like a garden in the desert, so to speak. And in fact, because our building was and our yard around the building was abandoned for a while, we didn't use it. People started to dump things, and all of that has cleared up. And by the way, I want to also let you know that we are so proud of Katie, because she was just awarded today the Unsung Heroine Award. So Katie, congratulations. We are so proud of you, and you are so deserving of this.
And that is the end of our presentation. We'd like to take questions from anybody, or whenever you'd like to do public comment.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation. Congratulations. To any members of the board have questions about this report?
Dr. Brandt, just one question for folks that are interested in volunteering. How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can, well, I usually give out my email on on our Instagram or social media platforms. Also, we have a weekly newsletter. So people who are interested can also subscribe to that as well. So there's like usually a form, and it just basically entails like what garden specifically you want to work at, you know, what days and what times. And usually volunteers at first would pair up with the volunteer coordinator, or sorry, the garden coordinator. I'm the volunteer coordinator, the garden coordinator, to kind of get the feel for the garden and know like certain volunteering tasks. And then after they meet with that garden coordinator, they can just go out and then volunteer at their own time whenever they want.
And I'll add the last slide in our slide deck, which I believe is available to the public, also has my email and phone number, so you can reach out to us anytime. And in addition to that, every single Saturday, come by and meet us at the Isla Vista Food Co-op, and we'll be there at 10:45, ready to walk over.
Thank you. Well, I'll ask a question. So could you tell us a little bit about this Unsung Heroine Award? Yeah,
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you, Frank, for mentioning that. This is from the Professional Women's Association. And it's an award that's done through the campus where they send out a call for applications throughout the entire university and ask for nominations of folks that have worked with different employees on campus that have made a difference for them. And somebody nominated me, I guess. I just found that out, and I did share with Frank. So thank you, Frank, for your compliment. But so that was something that I was awarded, and I'll be getting that at the Professional Women's Association conference this week.
amazing. That's great to hear.
Thank you.
Do any other directors have questions? Yes.
Do we have any metric on how much food the garden is producing?
We don't weigh it. So with the gardens, they are a pretty small garden space, and because we're volunteer run and really focused on sort of bringing in folks that have never necessarily gardened before, our goal's not high production. We do have a spot through the Edible Campus program. We have a range of different gardens that we work with. There is another garden where we have more of a focus around food production metrics. And so that would be our campus student farm. That one is entirely geared towards third-party food distribution and high production. It is entirely run by paid staff. They don't take as many volunteers as our other gardens. And they're able to do really complicated crop rotations, really plan out their compost applications throughout the year. They've really kind of fine-tuned it down to a science. And we use that space to really focus on being able to get food out to our campus food pantries. The community-based gardens are really more about bringing the neighborhood together and allowing for that food production. And I will say at this point, we're producing more food than even the volunteers can take home. And so every time volunteers come, even if they only volunteer with us for an hour, we're like, here's a bag of food. And we'll send them home with a bunch of herbs and lettuces and different types of items whenever they come. So it is a really nice balance. It gives folks a different way to interact. And we do find that the student farm that has that high food production is able to serve our food pantry and really serve sort of a large grouping of folks there. But we also have students that aren't comfortable going into food pantry, aren't necessarily comfortable kind of getting that donation space, but they might be totally comfortable coming and volunteering with us. And then we're able to serve them in a different way because they feel like they're giving back and they're participating and engaging in the garden and they get some food. But it's not based necessarily on financial needs. So kind of having that range of different types of gardens and different ways to interact has been really helpful for us. Yeah.
Could I also follow up on? Oh, sorry. Is that all right if I follow up on that, on what Katie just said?
That would be great, Danielle.
So I'm a garden educator. That's what I do. And Grace and I also just had a women's event. It was a woman-oriented volunteer event, and we saw a lot of the spinach we're growing home. I also saw a different collaboration that I was doing with Mop Us, which is Make Adventure Possible for all students. And for a food and nutrition, we use the spinach from the garden as well. And something that I love about the Methodist is how inclusive and open it is. And so we aren't again, like focused on food production, but something that's helpful is these people who are coming in and gardening for the first time are also learning that they don't need to hoard food because it's going to be there for them and it's community based. And so they can come back. And we're helping break away from that mindset of I'm not going to have food next week because I can continue to come back to this space and work here. And so it also just helps, I guess, healing that like college mindset of I have to eat like 10 slices of pizza right now because I don't know when my next meal is. But like knowing that there's vegetables just down the street that you can grab whenever you want really helps.
I should also add a lot of members of the houseless community regularly volunteer with us, and they're taking food, they're being able to harvest food all throughout the week. And so one of the other reasons why we don't weigh things is oftentimes folks are harvesting when we're not necessarily even there. And we do encourage folks, like if they're volunteer with us, we don't have a cap of the number of volunteer hours you have to put in to harvest food. As soon as you volunteer and you start to engage with the garden, you can come anytime you want and come. And one of the big things we always emphasize in all of our volunteer events and workshops, we teach people how to harvest, and we'll show like, hey, you know, here's a different thing you can do, and these are the things that are going to be harvestable this week, and hey, come back next week, the strawberries are coming back in. And so we're going to give them guidance too about what they can pick up when they're there. But it does make it really hard to track weights, which all of our donors always want to see what the weights that we're producing is, that it is really difficult when there's a lot of self-harvesting going on.
All right, do any other directors have questions?
Can you talk real quickly about the renovations at the church? First, congrats to the Methodist for that is really big news that construction is going on. It's written in the report. It mentions how this will help build more storage and help composting operations.
Frank, do you want to go ahead and start, and then I'll add about the storage?
Yeah, so we haven't made definite plans yet, but we definitely said that we will have a nice, adequate, large space for the garden operations, and also a bath. Oh, sorry.
Frank, do you want to just do a general renovation update?
Oh, yes. Okay, so we just started, so it's very exciting. After 8 years of trying to raise funds and get permits and so forth, we are finally starting. We started yesterday with the asbestos removal, and we anticipate that phase 1 will be finished in August.
Wonderful. Thank you, Frank. And then I'll add more specifically on the composting side. So once the church construction is finished, which will be in the next 2 years, we'll have ample indoor storage space, and actually much better designed indoor storage space than what we've had in the past. We've also talked to Compost Collective about making sure that they also have access to that indoor space, which will really be able to accommodate all of the different tools that we want to provide. And then we'll have nicer bathrooms too, which is something we're really excited about for the space. In addition to that, because that will take some time, we also did meet with Carly last Friday, and also Commissioner Freeman was there as well, or Board Member Freeman was there as well, and can help to report back on this. But we were able to get an update from Compost Collective about what they'd like to see in the space. We approved adding 2 additional bins on either side of the existing 3-pile compost bin. So there would be 2 drop-off bins and 2 bins on the other side for fine and coarse compost that's finished. We will be adding, we did approve for Carly to add a small shed in that space that would allow for the things that they need immediate access to while the indoor storage is being created. And so in particular, there was a desire for call tool, for their sifters, for being able to have a couple of buckets. And so those will be able to accommodated with the shed that we could have negotiated the size on. And then there was an additional request for wheelbarrows. We've decided to keep the wheelbarrows outside of the shed area, but we actually can provide the wheelbarrows. So we have 5 existing wheelbarrows. We have a bike lock system for the wheelbarrows so they don't get stolen. And those are available, and we've shared the codes for that with Compost Collective as well. So we're adding the outdoor shed space. We'll be adding access for the indoor shed space when completed. We're adding access for the wheelbarrows. We're adding 2 bins on either side. And we also talked about an area where they could do some prep for their compost as well to the left side of the bin. So we identified space for that. So those are all some of the things that we talked about doing.
Awesome. Well, that's really cool. It's really awesome to see 2 of our programs working together in a way that is very beneficial to both. So thank you for that.
There's also discussion of art and signage.
Yeah, so I didn't present the mural today because we have a little bit more work to do to sort of think this through. But as we're doing the renovation on the building, we've also been starting to talk about murals. So we had some painting on the side of the building, but that was always with the intention that the building was going to be repainted. So at one point we had some volunteers come out and just kind of paint some fun stuff on the sides. But we'd like to sort of come back and actually formalize those into some nice murals. So one of the things we talked about is a lot of what we try to do through Edible Campus program is help people regain a sense of connection to land and a sense of food sovereignty. And we'd like some mural art to actually connect to that. And so some of the things we talked about, we're having a Chumash mural that would talk about some of the history of this area and the Chumash community that is both historically and currently here. And then we also wanted to have a mural that would talk to the Asian American heritage of particularly that part of Isla Vista. So something that not everybody may know is that in the 70s and 80s, there were actually 800 Hmong individuals in Isla Vista, and the area directly around the Methodist Church was an Asian community, mostly around Hmong, Vietnamese, and Laotian and Korean individuals. The church itself is actually a Korean church. And the Estero Gardens, which is right across the street and run by the Isla Vista Recreation Parks District, was at one point such an important cornerstone for the Hmong community. And at the time, 80% of the plots at the Isla Vista Recreation Parks District garden were actually owned by Hmong individuals or rented by Hmong individuals. They actually used to call it the Hmong Gardens. And so we really want to bring some of that history back because a lot of folks don't know that there was such a robust and thriving Asian community. And so we'd like to also have a mural that talks to that as well. We've talked about a few other days, but kind of like having that kind of themed of different folks, the connection to land and how that's evolved over time through those murals. And we'd actually like to bring in some professional muralists and professional artists to be able to really bring those ideas to life. In addition to that, I know Carly has been excited about doing some additional signage around the compost bins and some educational signage as well. And we allocated some additional space for her to do that. And I'll let her be the one to tell you more about the detail on that. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, so at IV Compost Collective, we're currently thinking of proposing the sale of compost. So how much compost do you feel like your garden is requiring?
So what we'd like to say is that we are happy to accept any compost that Isla Vista Compost Collective would like to provide to us, but we do not want to put a minimum or a maximum on that. We would like that to be guided by the Compost Collective, and whatever compost we need that we're not able to get from the Isla Vista Compost Collective, we'll just purchase on our own.
That was actually something that we haven't had another meeting of our compost collective or composting subcommittee since we last talked about that. During the meeting that had occurred at the Methodist Church with Carly and the other person from us, as well as the people from Methodist Church, et cetera, this had come up and it was kind of negotiated out as a nice way of allowing the kind of separation of the interests there. So.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Is it appropriate for me to add something at this point?
Yeah, we'll open it up to public comment. You can go first.
All right, John, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, yes, I'm John Devereaux. I'm the treasurer of the University Methodist Church. And all I wanted to say is just to echo what Katie and Pastor Frank have said. Normally, all I do is write checks and pay bills and that sort of thing. But I happen to be out there to check the church mail. I guess it was last Saturday. And I was absolutely amazed with all the students that were pulling weeds and doing other stuff in the garden. I'm not any kind of farmer, so I have no idea what they were actually doing. But it was very impressive. Viviana was there directing everybody and kind of telling them what to do. And I talked to her just a minute, but she didn't have time to talk to me very much because she was so busy doing the other things. But it's seeing it from the perspective of just writing checks most of the time, and then actually seeing it in action and seeing the people working and volunteers and everything. It was extremely impressive. And I'm so glad that our church is involved in this. Growing up as a Methodist, one of the things you always hear is something that our John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist Church, said, which was, do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can. And I can't think of a better way to do good than what we're doing out there in Isla Vista with that garden. And I just want to thank everybody that's involved with it.
All right, thank you very much. Does anyone else have public comment they'd like to share? Yes.
So I'm Henry Surya, been living in Isla Vista for 35 years, and for a good portion of it, from 1987 to 2011, I lived at 6651 Sueño, and the Methodist Church is right up the street, it's the west of where I lived at. And to echo Pastor Frank's comment, it went from a dirt lot to this oasis. I see it now, and the work that's been done on there as a function of this group and the community is just amazing. It is a huge transformation. It is a noticeable transformation, something that's good for the community. Secondly, as Maria was saying about hard pan soil out there, it's true. That was totally unarable soil. What she's done with that out there to get that going, that's hard work. It has to be appreciated. And with that said, going to the volunteers, the amount of people that are going out there to do the work, Grace coordinating all these people to go out there and do that. And, it's Director Craig asked a question, what's the metric in terms of food? And I think the true metric of the success of this garden is not the question of how much weight of food you have, is the amount of community involvement. That's the true metric right there. And that's one metric that I've been seeing that is just growing on a daily basis. So, to see this garden just flourish from that, and then to see the community center gardens flourishing as well, it's been an amazing journey. And lastly, I meant to say it firstly, but lastly, congratulations on your award. It's been a long time coming. You've done many wonderful things for the community, many things that are highly respected, highly esteemed. And I hope that your involvement with our community continues to forever and a day. In fact, I hope that your involvement with the community as well continues forever and a day. It's amazing to see what's going on down there. And if you haven't been down there, I highly recommend going down there, taking a look, and volunteering if you get a chance. And you mentioned about circular planters. I'm an ex-union carpenter before I was an engineer. If you need a circular planter, Bill, let me know. So it's always good.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any public comments on Zoom? All right. Well, seeing the end of public comment, I'll come back to the board for any specific discussion on this item. I see that we want to give direction to staff and the finance committee regarding this annual report.
Well, I'd just like to say that it's very exciting what you're doing, and really for how little money you're doing it. And it's made such a difference in the community. And I personally am very much in support of continuing to fund this program and see it thrive.
Dr. Brandt.
Yeah, I just really want to say so much gratitude to the three of you and those that are on Zoom. You've got a big, thriving team of folks that are dedicated to making this program a success. You're expanding. I'm particularly a huge fan of the expansion at the community center. I really appreciate that you've worked with both our community center team and also our compost team to help improve their programs as well. So this is really such just a value add to our organization in addition to all of the good work that you just spoke about that you do in terms of providing services to people in the garden. So I'm a huge fan. I'll look forward to supporting the expansion, which includes the funding to expand the garden site at the community center. And really looking forward to how that plays out. I know that you've experienced it, that there have been bumps along the way in terms of trying to make it come to fruition, but I'm really happy that you're keeping at it and that you got a design that I think looks pretty good. So I'll be excited to see it. And please keep us in the know and connected with different events and stuff that you are hosting at any of the gardens that you work in. Yeah, I know that our board would love to come and visit some. So thank you. Yes.
I always like talk about how I really like to see impacts in the community, and it's really quite clear that there is an impact here. And I just want to say that I'm very much in support of it and seeing it grow more. That's really quite work.
All right, well, I'm very impressed that we have this program, and I love seeing this in two forms, in the report with the narrative, a little bit more of my style, easier for me to catch up for my being late, so apologies for that. But plenty of good photos in here to see, and I'm excited to continue this partnership and continue to have a service mindset in our neighborhood. I think that's something that we all appreciate, and I think Isla Vista is really fertile neighborhood for this kind of service mindset and the sharing, the open door policy, and the open land policy of once you work with the earth, then it's time to also be a receiver and harvest as well. So I'm really proud of this philosophy that you nurtured here. Yeah. Is this enough direction for our item? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Yeah.
Thank you for having us here tonight.
And let's move on to our second item, 4.2, the community engagement project manager role.
Okay, give us a second to get it ready on Zoom. Question? Yeah.
Sorry, point over. Can we make this the doc?
It's not public. It's public. All right, so I'm gonna turn it over to Sydney to talk about this position. We've talked about it a few times at our board meetings, at our finance committee, at our board meeting again, and at our retreat. We've been talking about it as a position for the next year's budget, but we're asking today to approve the job description and pay range and the June 1st start date so that we can do proper training and planning as Sydney goes on parental leave later into December. So we want to just be able to have this person not start, 15 days or so before she's got to go off and give them time to learn the position. So I'll turn it over to Sydney to talk about the details of the job, but that was just why we put it at this point. And the pay range, the $27 per hour. We did research on social media manager positions in the Santa Barbara area is how we came to that number. We originally started at 25 with the finance committee, but found that like a lot of other competitive positions were a bit higher. So it was $2 we proposed at that level. So Sydney, tell you.
Thanks, Jonathan. So as Jonathan mentioned, I know you all received this, and it's definitely in line with all the different conversations that we've been having at the various meetings to support the CE department. But just kind of briefly, I'll just say that the tasks and projects, it ranges from, it's a lot of different things, but creating social media content, executing marketing materials, and drafting those materials like flyers, things like that, supporting events, tabling, canvassing, really being out in the community, having that dedicated person, increasing community participation and awareness, maintaining an organized and inclusive environment, and constituent outreach to promote our services. So this position under my supervision will manage day-to-day outreach prep ranging from social media and website management. Like I said, drafting those materials, distributing them throughout the community in a number of different ways, assisting with events like the town halls, and supporting volunteer recruitment. They'll post across platforms. I'm kind of just scrolling as Jonathan's scrolling as well. Yeah, canvassing, tabling, all of the different events that we host, from community forums and workshops, town halls, all of that. I think that pretty much covers this section. Yeah, there will be some, compiling and report writing in terms of like data collection, especially like around our budget, and data that we collect for that. And then the rest of it is pretty standard in terms of what things that we're looking for. We really would love for them to have some experience with constant contact. If not, it's no problem. It's a pretty easy platform to use, but also with social media applications and community organizing would be great. I think in the next section, it does mention that we are asking that this person is bilingual, is Spanish speaking. I think that will really leverage our resources in terms of being able to translate both marketing materials, captions, all the things, all of our emails in real time, rather than right now. What I do is I send it out for translation and then have to get it back a few days later. So it's not a super quick process. So that's something that's really important. And also just being able to be someone in the community that can speak in Spanish on behalf of the district is essential. I think that covers this, but again, I am open to any questions. It really goes into all of the details, but I'm just really excited to begin recruiting for this position and expanding our department. I know that there's a lot that we can accomplish with this new role. So happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you very much for that update. Do any directors have questions?
I know we discussed at the board retreat how much overtime people were getting, like 160%. How much, do we have an estimate of how much that will lower this, if any at all? I guess that's a question for John.
I don't have the exact figures, but we do know that different positions will have, up to 20% chunks of their positions removed from them, or so that's what I saw, is that a lot of people had around 15 to 20% under outreach. So that'll probably drop to like 5 to 10% max instead. So they'll be taking on 10% from multiple people at least.
Dr. Freeman.
At the beginning of this explanation, were you saying that this was going to be timed in some way to help with and Sydney has to be on leave?
Yes, it's not this position is not in the budget this year, but we're asking to hire it June 1st, which is a $5,000 budget impact or less, so that we could get training started before Sydney goes on leave.
When this person comes in, are we going to be throwing them immediately into 120%?
They are an hourly, it is hourly, so it is 40 hours. It is not a salaried position, so we're going to be pretty actually not stuck, but strict with the 40 hours, and it's easier to stick to that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can actually say that it will have that positive benefit in the immediate time period, since we won't have Sydney for normal reasons. She'll be out on leave. But so this person will have to be covering like a lot of time, and they're likely to still be or be asked to be working in some overtime capacity, even if we do not let them.
Or we
Yeah.
could let them if we do it.
Yeah.
Well, we could let them, a certain budget expense, I guess. Director
Well, I think I just heard Jonathan say is potentially 20%, but that's not, this is not going to be the end all be all. We still have to do other investments. So you can't stop at this.
For sure, and we've considered some of those other ones. It's mainly, you're gonna see one for the compost collective next, and then we've been talking about one for scheduling reservations, so yeah, we have lots of different ideas, but this is one of the big ones, especially, there's lots of reasons for this one, but that's one of them.
Perfect, thank you.
I'd just like to comment that I think that the job description is very well constructed. I'm delighted that we're going to open recruitment tomorrow. And I think having the position be bilingual is really very helpful. And I think that this is a great thing for us to do, and we should do it.
It is a missing skill on the IVCSD staff. None of us speak Spanish, so that's why you might limit your pool by making it required, but it gets us what we actually need, which is someone who speaks Spanish. So.
Do you, so with this, because I see that it's at 27 an hour, which I think it's good that you have the thought to say, let's go on the higher end or bump it up to make sure that we're in line with the market. Just knowing that adding in the bilingual aspect will potentially, it's less of a pool and potentially might cost more. Like, do you have the authority to negotiate with the person if you find an ideal candidate?
I mean, I'll come back to the board for it, which we've done before. So I can do that. And one thing that other government agencies do is they give you like a special stipend if you are bilingual. Like it's just pay based on skill, essentially. Some people do it for if you have a PhD or a master's too, but like we could think about that as some other route that's, would be to the policy committee, but that's another option.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah. Definitely would be supportive of if you feel that you need to come to us to get the final approval, that's fine, but I'm just supportive of it in general if you have to pay more for that extra skill.
Great, thank you.
Right, I see no other directors with questions, so I'll open. Do you have a question?
No, I just want to see if we were a comment yet.
Okay, yes, we will open this item up to public comment. So do any members of the public have comments on this project manager role and job description? I don't think I see any on Zoom.
Let's give it a double check. I don't. You would be able to see the hands up here, but no hands.
Okay, well, let's return to the board for board commentary. Do any directors have comments and questions?
I just wanted to say, I think that this one is especially important. I think community engagement is growing, and that's wonderful for the district. It is vital for our district to continue to grow. And so I know we're talking about incorporating a lot of different positions, but I'm very enthusiastic about this one.
Wanted to say I have similar support. This is very important, especially to have someone who can kind of get some training and some ground running, education in the role with our current staff. That way we're not hiring kind of in a last minute hurry, because we are looking for a specialized set of skills. So I'm really glad to see also that, this hiring window starts tomorrow. And I'm definitely in support of this role.
You ready for a motion?
I am ready for a motion.
I'll move to approve the CE project manager role.
Second that.
All right, motion by Topliff and a second by Scholes. Is there any public comment on this motion? No public comment on this motion. All right. Let's have a vote. So all those in favor of approving this CE project manager role, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. All right, this motion passes 6-0-0-1.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 4.3, the Compost Collective Ad Hoc Committee recommended job descriptions.
All right, great. Well, I'll let our committee share on this topic as well. So our committee's been meeting, we met twice already. We've had very productive conversations, analyzing the current state of the Compost Collective. We're compiling more recommendations and more ideas, but we felt at our Thursday meeting that these two temporary positions, so these aren't permanent benefited roles, but we felt that these two temporary positions would be pretty critical. So I'm trying to see why Zoom is blocking our screen here. We felt that these two positions were critical to getting the Compost Collective to move forward today. So it's two roles. One is an electric bike. Sorry, let me just fix this. I'm sorry.
And while you're fiddling around with that, I'll just say that we had already decided to enter into a contract with Electric Bike Genius. And he balked about signing the contract because of the insurance provisions that were on his shoulders. So he recommended that we hire him as an employee instead. And so we were happy that we had a workaround to get past that, because we do feel like we need to get him working for us immediately.
Yeah, thank you. So we kept the pay per hour the same as the contract. We kept the number of hours per week the same as the contract, and it is a temporary role, so there's no benefits associated with the position, just like there would be with the contract. So we really did what we could here to make sure that we got this position in place. The challenge with this bike is it's a good tool, but it is more like a car than a bike, and so you need someone who's got skills on both ends who can work on it. So this person, he was the right person for the position under a contract role, but since that's not working, we felt that that most expeditious path to get this done would be to make this a temporary position and move forward with it. This way he'd be able to he'd be a part of our team directly, helping with our two bikes. And then the other position is another temporary position. So these are both temporary roles that aren't permanent benefited. I think we're still in our process before we can propose something more full, but we thought these two are important. This would be a part-time 20-hour-a-week role, level 3 intern at $20 an hour. And this would essentially be bringing back a position that used to exist. We used to have an operations coordinator when the Compost Collective first started. And we felt at different times, 2 years ago, I recommended this was, well, since we're hiring a full-time program manager, we won't need the part-time coordinator to assist anymore. That was wrong. That was just a mistake I made a couple of years ago when we created that position. So this is essentially bringing that temporary or that part-time coordinator role back. It's the $20 an hour is the intern level 3 level that we have. So intern level 2 is 17, which is what most people are at, and then level 3 is 20. So that's just a promotional opportunity for someone who is in the Compost Collective, or someone else can apply to. It's an open application, but this would provide the day-to-day logistical assistance for what the Compost Collective does. So Carly's doing lots of different areas of work, one of them being operations management in terms of shift scheduling, showing up at the piles and troubleshooting, those kinds of things. And so this position would be taking that on and reducing her workload to focus more on program development, like sale of compost and improving our processes and all that kind of thing. So that's what these two positions would be. And we can mostly accommodate these in, we've already approved the budget for the bike mechanic, and the coordinator too, we can mostly accommodate in our current budget, and then we'd work to plan for it in the next one. But as a temporary position, we're more flexible if we want to, make this full-time. We can do our analysis and see how this works and make maybe a change to it.
Right, do any, yes.
If I can add this
Oh, yeah.
to the committee, we know that from the retreat we had, that's what I'm looking for. Carly's operating at like 160%. She's the highest of all of our program managers. So I think this is really important. And also she already has like 5 candidates that she's considering for the position. So, let's do for this. It's just a matter of getting someone on board.
Okay.
I have a question that hadn't occurred to me quite during the meetings about the electric bike employee position. And then actually now with Ross here, I think is actually contextually was causing me to think about this question. So the position that the issue we were trying to have the use this contract work was that didn't want to satisfy an insurance requirement. What was that insurance for?
General liability insurance, and
Like if you were to injure himself while working on the bike.
or one of our employees got injured.
That's
while-
workers' comp. Oh, well, you got
Even we did try to clarify with him that that would be workers' comp on our end, but he was too hesitant to go into the contractor arrangement.
Okay. So actually, to verify, we were just saying is that it wouldn't be that part, but it would be like, if one of our employees was injured using the bicycle that he had.
He was worried about that, even though that
He was worried about that, but what were we worried about? What was our goal with the insurance?
the general liability insurance, the $1 million of general liability insurance that we have on all our contracts.
Oh, that's just not any, it wasn't a specific, okay, wasn't a specific, okay, great. I was just wondering that it's like, maybe there's some specific like danger there, and there's like, oh, we're hiring this employee, sure, now we've covered them, but like, are we prepared to take on whatever that liability was?
It would be then under our insurance, because you know, the committee said, why can't we just insure him? Well, by making him an employee, you essentially are.
I guess my question isn't the same way that I wanted to ask it, but I think it still is relevant in the sense of or at least a version of it is still relevant in the sense that we're going to hire somebody to do the like as an employee to now do the bicycle maintenance, and they're either they injure themselves while working with bicycle, or they make a modification to the bicycle that causes others of our employees to get injured. Are we really prepared to do that? To take that liability and bring that liability in-house? Is that a unique liability more different than the liability that, yes, you know, people might injure themselves with the tooling for the composting and everything currently, but it's not quite the same thing I feel as that the bicycle, but I might be curious.
My take is it's covered under workers' compensation, which we pay a lot of money for a year.
Right.
To be covered for.
Okay, great.
That's a remedy that exists for all employees. If you're injured in the course and scope of your employment, workers' compensation covers you.
Okay.
The general liability is for if somebody else is hurt by their conduct somehow. The example you gave is modification of the bike and they get hurt, a wheel flies off and hits Marcos on the sidewalk. And Marcos is a civilian, not a member of the CSD. He would be covered under the general liability insurance for the potential negligence of the employee who did the riding and the employee who did the modification. Workers' comp would cover the employees who were injured.
Great. Thank you so much for the explanation.
I'm very much in favor of both of these positions. I did notice as I went through the knowledge necessary for bike mechanics, it seemed like everything I saw was not something that I thought they needed to be knowledgeable about, but it did not mention bicycle mechanics.
I think that's let me check. There was that should be in there. Oh, these are just our basic knowledge ofs. I don't know why the bicycle mechanic ones aren't in there. We can make that
And
added.
plus,
Yeah.
personally, I would cut out all the other ones because they just don't seem relevant.
It's just a copy paste error
I
on that
think it
section.
was.
Yeah, my apologies.
Not well.
We do have it. We do have the bike mechanic knowledge of.
You've masterminded a change in thinking to make this work. So some details maybe need a little.
For what it's worth, I looked at those and I thought maybe it was just like generic. Well, in order to be an employee of our company, they're going to have to know how to use Zoom. Because
Yeah,
we use Zoom.
I mean, no, that's what I said. These are our generic ones.
Yeah.
These are generic.
You don't want to Zoom with a bicycle mechanic.
Live demonstration. So any other directors have questions about these two coordinator and mechanic position?
A quick question. When would we be reassessing whether to make that other position, the coordinator position, potentially permanent?
I would say by the end of the budget process, which is in August. So we'll know. Well, let's see how it is in June, and then we'll see how it is again in July, August.
So just as a follow-up to that, what's the projected timeline for the hire on the coordinator 3?
Instant, very fast. Yeah, that is. We're gonna have it just our standard 2-week or 1-week application process, and then interviews and hire. the bike mechanic is the same. So very fast. We're ready to move. People know that the positions are open or are going to be open. So people are primed to apply.
Cool.
And we got 26 applications last time we opened compost applications. So people are interested in the positions.
All right, so I'll bring this item regarding these job descriptions to the public. For any public comments or questions about these recommended job descriptions? Yes.
Well, first of all, from the first presentation with the community garden, you can see the compost collective has a very far-reaching role in our community. Not just, not just with the Methodist gardening, but a lot of the gardening agricultural aspects of our community. With that said, any help that Carly can get is definitely, it's necessary, it's needed. You have to have, and I'm glad these positions are being considered because her work is tough as it is. There's no need to make it any tougher. I think that it's a very far-reaching effort in a good way. And, having the extra help that she needs to take some of the load off her shoulders is definitely very, very welcome. Then there's the bike mechanic thing, and to kind of sort of answer a question that Director Freeman was asking. As a bike mechanic myself, I was working in a shop and I did something faulty with a bike, and a customer goes out and rides it on the sidewalk. The wheel comes off. That's one of those things that's handled by outside insurance. Anything happens to the workers, like, your legal counsel said it's a workers' comp, but it's outside of the realm of the shop. The wheel flies off, the person gets injured on the bike or something. If it's an employer that gets injured on a bike, that is workers' comp. But if it's a civilian like myself, just walking around, I get hit by a flying bike part. That's another liability insurance that gets covered. So just to kind of reiterate on that. But if you got a good bike mechanic, there shouldn't be any problems. So just saying that. That's a Shimano certified bike mechanic. So, but yeah, get Carly the help she needs. She really does need that assistance with her position. It would make things a lot better for not just the compost collective, but the other efforts as well, the community garden and everything else.
All right, thank you for those comments. Do any other members of the public have comments? All right.
Ready for a motion?
We'll go back to the board for any commentary on these job descriptions. Do any directors have comments they'd like to make? Dr. Brand.
Just a quick thank you to Carly for working with the committee, and a thank you to the committee for putting this together. It's great work. And I wanted to highlight that it's very timely because this week has been declared Compost Awareness Week in Santa Barbara County. So I just wanted to throw that out there and call attention, as we are right now, to the great work that the collective is doing. And I will move the job description.
All right. There we go. Is there a second? All right. Motion by Brand, second by Craig. Is there any public comment on this motion? All right, let's have a vote, everyone. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. All right, this motion passes 6-0-0-1. And now we'd like to have a little 5-minute recess period before we move on to our public art policy. So it's almost 7:20 and we will reconvene at 7:25.
Just first the leg, now you're getting hit with the wheel, it's flying off.
It's now 7:25 PM, so we will return to open session. We're
Reconvene.
reconvening in our discussion action items portion of the meeting. So we're at item 4.4, the public art policy.
All right, so we're pulling up the staff report right now. This is a really exciting policy to bring forward. Our policy committee has looked at it twice already. We didn't look at it for the final draft, but that's because they just said, make the final edits and bring it to the board. So we did that. We took all those edits and brought it to the board. I'm gonna go over just the staff report background section really quick. We've been trying to do public art since the beginning of the district, since the first year. Director Jordan had presented the idea to the board for the first budget, and we did put it into the budget for the first year. It was $5,000. We never got to spend it. So now that we have Jenna on board, who's on the call, we finally have somebody who can administer that public art budget and somebody who can put that in place. Also, at the same time as the public art budget, we started Ivy Beautiful, which was cleaning up graffiti. And sometimes they clean up graffiti on existing public art, but it wasn't the main focus, but it was something that happened. But once we took on Ivy Beautiful, it became a very strong focus of the program. Under Jenna's leadership, we've taken on every mural on the electricity boxes, for example, or utility boxes, and restored them. And we've gotten some requests even from property owners who have murals on their property that are in the public right of way to clean up graffiti from them. So this has been a long time coming. However, now that there's so much going on in this area, it felt important that we have a policy that would help give the district some guidance on how we go about it. So there's like two areas really with this public art policy. One is public art that already exists in IP, which there's a lot of. And then two is public art that we want to help develop. So what the policy does is it creates a process for owners of public art to work with the district to apply for us to, adopt their mural, essentially. Then we would collect information from them. We'd make sure we're using the right materials, paint. We're acknowledging the original artist's intent. And so that would be one process, is getting the property owners of current public art to give them an opportunity to work with us to have us maintain the art. And then the other one is for any current landowner or somebody who has space in Isla Vista wants a new public art installation. It creates a process for us to fund that, an application process for us to consider and make that funding determination. Since it's so public, there's different levels. There's a staff level, there's a general manager level, and then there's final board approval. Finally, one other thing I wanted to mention with this is, this is very much a part of our graffiti abatement power. That it's a strategy around graffiti abatement. We want to have an outlet for people to create public art rather than just creating it in places where it's not supposed to be. So that's the idea and philosophy behind this program. Is public art one of our enumerated powers? No, it does not say public art in the legislation, but this is a strategy tactic of implementing the goal of graffiti abatement in Isla Vista and just general beautification as part of our maintenance of public property on behalf of other owners of that public property. So I can walk you through the exact line by line of the policy. I'm not sure you would want that, but there's a clean version and a red line version in there and the staff report, and we're approving a resolution that kind of adopts all at once. So yeah, happy to take any questions, or maybe our policy committee can answer a question.
Dr. Freeman.
There is a fill in the blank for a number of dollars for the application in the policy that
there's no dollar, it's just zero. We're not going to do it.
Was it
Application.
removed?
Yeah.
Was it removed? And I thought I looked at the.
No, it should just say zero. We're not going to do an application fee.
Okay, but what the policy reads is payment of the application processing fee in the amount of $ period.
Okay, it should be zero.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not that you'll leave it as zero because maybe one day we want to have a fee or need to have a fee because the volume becomes great, but why have a fee now? Yeah.
Great. I just noticed that there was like
no, it's just
yeah. All right.
I noticed a couple of references to the 8-foot setback and I didn't really understand what that meant.
Well, that's why we took a recess, so.
Right, so that's not it's not a legal thing, but it's a rule of thumb. So the public right of way does not stop at the curb. Public right of way, what typically happens is for private property that abuts public property, a municipality or a county, well, they get a public access easement for a sidewalk that goes over the end of the property closest to the street, right? So that's where you get with that parkway that's usually about 3 feet wide, got the sidewalk, and then from the edge of the sidewalk, you've got the private property owner's property, right? Most sidewalks are 5 feet wide, 60 inches. So when you add 5 feet for a sidewalk plus 3 feet for a parkway, you get 8 feet, which is the distance between back curb line BCL to the edge of the sidewalk before you hit private property. Generally speaking, that's all considered part of the public right of way. Technically, it's not. That parkway belongs to the private property owner, but you have a general kind of right of access to it.
So that's the relevance to this
Yes.
issue, is
Yeah.
that's the area we can move in to actually abut a private population.
For sure, yes, to remove graffiti. I mean, what we
Right.
do is if there's graffiti on a fence that is right on the sidewalk, we don't ask the property owner to remove it. We just remove it because it's in the public right of way. It doesn't forbid us if someone has graffiti further into their property and they want us to remove the graffiti. We do have a process for that. Only one property owner or two have really used it.
So is it only in reference to graffiti and not in reference to public art then? 'Cause
Well,
that's what I
it's
was
kind
looking
of
at.
both because it's like public art that's in the public right of way, because that's where a lot of it is. It's on fences, on the sidewalk.
Right. So in order to maintain the public art, you would have to be able to access it in the same way that the district has accessed property before to abate graffiti. That's why they're really connected.
Got it. Thank you.
Or in order to clean up a mural that may have graffiti on it, same thing.
Because maintenance might not mean just graffiti, it means like refreshing the color and making it, restoring it to how it looked before.
But if it's actually on a private wall, don't we need some kind of permission from the private wall owner?
Yeah, so that's what this policy is creating a process for. If it's graffiti, we will just eliminate the graffiti and we will touch it up in the process of removing the graffiti. But if you want us to be, the caretaker of that mural, that's what this is setting up. Yeah. Because right now we're only removing graffiti. We're not making them prettier.
I just want to clarify questions. So this would be, for example, somebody who owns a business or is the owner of property, and there's a mural that they don't maintain, but they can opt in with us and say, could you please continue to keep this mural looking beautiful and vibrant?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be in the public right of way either. I mean, if we want it to, we should have it be publicly visible. It could be 10 feet away. But that's creating a process that it's fair. It's not we're just arbitrarily giving someone money and there's a goal behind it. And yeah.
Got you. Thank you. Any other directors, any questions? Director Freeman?
Having loss in my peripheral vision causes me to come up with questions that I don't think of even after multiple applications of doing this in the.
It's my gift, it's my curse.
By the process of having a business, for example, fill out one of these applications of that will be maintenance, potentially even some of the description here, like ownership, transfer of ownership. If we then fail to perform upkeep in some way that business owner might be expecting that we do, is there some liability that we take on for not maintaining?
There's no harm, there's no real damage, so they would have to bring some type of an implied contract, but it's not really a contract. And so liability against public agencies is pretty strictly circumspect. It's very limited in how people can sue public agencies. So essentially it's a service and they have to say, well, you didn't do the service the way that you did. Okay, what's your harm? No harm, then there's really no basis for liability. On a risk continuum, this is a very, very, very low risk.
Okay, great.
Any other directors have questions? Director Britt?
So I know part of this is, and the part I'm most interested in is the maintenance aspect. Is there a mechanism here where I understand the board has the discretion to say yes or no if we get an application. Is there a mechanism where we can make sure that when these come to our board that we are budgeting for that maintenance out into the future? I'm just thinking about some of the murals that I see around town that, there was clearly no maintenance plan ever. And I know that this is so that we can have a plan, but I think it would be good. I guess this is more of a comment, just that when we get these applications, it'd be nice to see the budget impact of maintaining it out in the future as well.
I think we'll learn that in the next few months. Like once we start taking on a couple, we'll start seeing how much time does it take for the Ivy Beautiful crew to do it, and then we'll start knowing. Because we'll also do a schedule. Like, okay, well, it took this person 10 hours, but 10 hours every year or every 2 years or whatever the schedule is. It's better than whatever it is now, probably.
Definitely, yeah. No, I just want to call attention to that because, we're doing this as a public service where we're saying that we really want to set the fee at $0 so that we can really provide this public art, but we're also committing future boards to costs when we do that. So I just think that it'll be good to have that, included when we have these come to our board is the cost.
And if you want to decide in the future, based on that information that you gather to set a fee, that would be the factual basis for making that determination. And since public agencies can't set fees on most services, any service really, that is above what their actual costs are, you would need to collect that information in order to set that rate. So that's another benefit of having it be zero to start. You don't really have a basis other than cost of materials. But once you do budget it and you get some data points, you'll be able to craft a factual basis for setting a fee.
Thanks.
Dr. Freeman. So the fee blank that is currently in here is just for the an application processing fee, not necessarily ongoing maintenance. If we later on realize that I'm not really expecting we're having discussion. If we later on realize that it's actually extremely expensive in order to maintain one of these particular murals, or maybe all of them, are we in a position to be able to cause a fee to be levied on the people who have already filed an application and transferred the maintenance responsibility to us?
Give them an opportunity to continue to opt into the program once you're setting the fee. That would be the thing to do.
Okay.
And if they want to continue, then they know that they're going to be paying it forward on a going forward basis. And if they decide not to renew, then they're not covered by it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And I guarantee you we'll do a lot on this, and this is a very detailed policy. We'll do so much to follow it, and then we'll realize, oh wait, no, we can't do this part. This part needs to be different. And then we'll make that edit later too.
All right, other directors.
Did we ever decide how to pronounce de-accessioning?
I don't know. It's in the bottom here.
Is there a pronunciation guide now?
I don't
No.
Okay.
This one.
No, you said it right. De-accession. Yes. De-accessioning.
It's a hard one.
You're basically disallowing.
It gets pronounced very differently in libraries, but
Well, how's it pronounced in the library?
de-accession.
There you go. There's your pronunciation. I take his expertise.
It's recorded on Zoom.
There it is.
I can confidently say that one. But I think there's multiple pronunciations that are allowed. Well, so seeing no other directors' questions, I'll move to public comment and any public comments or questions on this proposal.
Yeah. Jen, I didn't turn it over to you if you want to say anything.
I don't really have anything particular to say other than I'm really excited about this, and the addition of art is very highly requested from the public, and I think it'll make a huge difference to not only add more art, but have a plan to maintain the art that is already out there. So thank you everyone for working.
Awesome, thank you. Well, so we'll return to the board for any further board commentary or questions. I see there's a recommended motion Well, the item about adopting resolution number 23XX. Yeah, do any directors have comments, questions they'd like to make? Any directors want to make this a motion?
I'll make that motion.
There a second? All right, the motion to approve resolution number 23-6, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Isla Vista Community Services District approving and adopting a public art policy made by Topliff, seconded by Craig. Is there any public comment on this motion? Yes.
To echo what Jenna had said, you know, art is something that our community definitely needs. And there was something Director Abood said is that, you know, while it's not an enumerated legislative mandate on your legislation, it does fall under public safety. You know, you eliminate graffiti by, you know, a lot of people won't graffiti over some established art. So it does eliminate that. You know, if you introduce art, you eliminate graffiti to a certain degree. Not to say that some taggers don't have a heart, but they don't. But you know, they're far and few in between, hopefully. But it does fall under public safety. So I think that passing of this resolution would be a very smart thing for public safety.
All right. Thank you for that comment. Now I'd like to take a vote on this motion. So all directors who are in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. All right, this motion passes 6-0-0-1.
I want to give a shout out to Jamie at our legal counsel office. She did a lot of the work on this.
All right, thank you very much, Jamie. And now we will move into our closed session portion of our meeting. Item 5.1, the general manager annual performance and salary review. Okay.
We'll do the technical stuff real quick. Perfect. No, you just have to do that. Yeah. Got it. Okay. We are recording. Again.
The camera on.
The camera is on. It's just on speaker view here.
Oh,
not-
it showed up.
Yeah. There we go.
All right, my apologies, everyone. For a good suggestion from the board, we're going to move to item 6, reports, before our closed session item. That way, folks who want to hear these reports, they don't have to wait through our closed session discussion. So we'll start with item 6.1, reports from members of the board. Do any directors have reports they'd like to share? Director Freeman.
May 22nd, which is the 4th Monday of this month, will be the chapter meeting of the Santa Barbara local chapter of the California Special Districts Association meeting. People want to attend that dinner. Some people have in the past. It is a dinner event with often a speaker. I think right now, I think this meeting is going to be a great presentation, and it is going to be located at La Bote Bistro, which is
Thank you for that report. Any other directors have reports they'd like to share? Director Bray.
Just want to give a quick shout out to Maya and the community center staff. This month, the community center is lit up in green in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. And I just really wanted to call it out. This is a really important issue for our community. And I really appreciate us being part of the effort to raise awareness about mental wellness.
All right, I'd like to share a couple of things. I had the pleasure today of being invited as the Isla Vista expert for a walking tour around Isla Vista with UCSB's Reads program. And this year, UCSB Reads, it's a common book program. So that's where a library has a free book for the community to read at large, kind of like a book club, but even bigger. And UCSB has the author come and talk. The author, Charles Montgomery, the book, The Happy City. He'll be having a conversation in Campbell Hall tomorrow evening. Today, there was a walking tour with 25 or 30 students. The author, myself, and I invited our general manager, Jonathan, to come along, and we simply walked from UCSB Student Resource Building, the lawn, under the Pardall Tunnel. We took a stop at the Pardall intersection. We took another stop at Embarcadero Hall and the IV Rec and Parks open space right there. And then we took another pause down at the very bottom of Embarcadero Del Mar, I believe. And we looked at the beach access point, and this was a super engaging conversation with the community. Jonathan and I got to hear from tons of neighbors about very important things that we as the board discuss when it comes to mobility, transportation, planning, all things we put effort and money into. And so it's really, really enlightening and positive to hear that the issues that we've been chasing and looking for solutions to are ubiquitous for our neighbors. People who weren't very aware of the existence of our district. There was one person who had a sticker on their water bottle, which is great to see. But it was a really good time to be an engaging director with folks I probably wouldn't get a chance to meet otherwise. We also did a good job of promoting our meetings, did a good job of promoting the mobility town hall that's coming up on May 24th. And yeah, it was overall a really exciting conversation. I wanted to keep talking with the author, with the students for even longer. So just really excited for the work that we're doing. I wanted to thank Jonathan for coming along on short notice. But I want to thank the author for having such good conversation and questions for us to consider. And yeah, just want to say I'm excited that we're going down this path and trying to find solutions for Isla Vista's mobility woes and mobility highlights. How can we improve the highlights we have? And the second thing I want to share is that it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And so I want to give a big shout out to all the different forms of educators in our community, whether they're teachers or professors or instructors or TAs or graders or students who have note-taking roles at UCSB for the Disabled Student Program. All of these different forms of education make this amazing wheel come to light, and this community has been very much nourished by education and its services. So I just want to highlight that as something we should all be thankful for in our community. And yeah, that concludes my report. Any other directors have reports they'd like to make? All right, let's move on to 6.2, reports from standing and ad hoc committees. Well, we heard a little bit earlier from the Compost Collective Ad Hoc Committee. I know that the Library Ad Hoc Committee is kind of doing some work and had a few conversations, and we'll hopefully have a more specified agenda item in the future. And we heard from the Policy Committee. Was there anything? And now I'd like to move to 6.3, report from our district council.
Thank you, President Aguilar. Four items. Two of them are grant related and two of them are state legislation related. So on the grant front, Jonathan and staff probably are watching the grants come through CSDA and the Special District Association. But the Department of Justice has a $10 million grant opportunity or $10 million of funding available on encouraging innovation strategies for preventing and reducing crime, improving community safety, and strengthening criminal justice systems outcomes. I know that's a very important issue for this board and for this community. The closing date on that is June 8th, 2023. So the Department of Justice. Department of Transportation has $24 million worth of grant funding for what they're calling the Regional Infrastructure Accelerators Demonstration Program. And the goal is to develop improved infrastructure priorities and financing strategies for accelerated development of projects that are eligible under the Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act program. So I know that the district is looking at parking and other mobility means. So there might be an opportunity there to snag some federal dollars, or maybe in conjunction with other local government stakeholders. So those are the two grants that came up on my radar. The other two items are bills coming out of or pending in the legislature, and they're currently, both of them are on their third reading. First is AB 557. Essentially, this is an extension of AB 361, which everyone is very familiar with, having used it for 2.5 years, to allow that to be used indefinitely. Currently, it has a sunset date at the end of this year. AB 557, sponsored by former Supervisor Hart, now Assemblymember Hart. You could use it anytime going into the future, as long as you met the conditions, which you know, since I've repeated them ad nauseum. Another difference would be that the renewal resolutions would be every 45 days instead of every 30 days. So that's what that is. Going back to criminal justice, AB 93 would add a provision to the penal code, and it would state that consent is not a basis for search of a person, a vehicle, or the person's effects. Now, under the Fourth Amendment, consent has been one of the principles under which law enforcement can conduct searches without a warrant. It's the first thing that you learn in law school when you do the Fourth Amendment. This would make it, under state law, something that law enforcement could not solicit, nor could they use it. And it's a very short bill, and I will pull it up. Oh, no, I don't have it for me, but it would add Penal Code Section 833.6, and it essentially says consent is not a basis for a search, and that law enforcement would not be able to solicit consent in order to conduct a search, and law enforcement agencies would not be able to authorize law enforcement officers to solicit or conduct searches pursuant to consent. So this is a pretty interesting idea that I thought would be of particular interest to this board. In and of itself, the fact that it's being discussed, but it's also on its third reading. So it's made its way fairly far into the legislative process. So we'll continue to watch what that does, but that will be a pretty big shift in relations between law enforcement and members of the public. The author of the bill cited as some of the basis that reported consent is a questionable categorization of what is actually occurring. I think there's a growing body of information suggesting that these consensual meetings with law enforcement are not, that they are typically more coercive or potentially deceptive in seeking consent. And there's also a concern that it disproportionately impacts communities of color, low income, different abilities, etc. So that will be an interesting one that we will continue to watch, especially because as of now, I'm not aware of any organized opposition or movement by any of the statewide law enforcement agencies, associations, excuse me, who typically will weigh in on these types of larger bills. For example, their participation in the discussion of decriminalizing a lot of the cannabis laws and allowing for the passage of the cannabis laws was pretty instrumental in allowing that to come to fruition. So keep an eye on that, and as it continues to work its way through the sausage factory, we'll provide some updates.
What's the number on that one again?
It's AB 93, and the penal code provision that it would add is penal code section 833.6. And it's only four subsections long. It's real short, very straightforward. Would be a big impact on how law enforcement is carried out in California. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Real quick, could you repeat the title of the grant? You mentioned the second one regarding parking and mobility.
Regional Infrastructure Accelerators Demonstration Program. Regional Infrastructure Accelerators Demonstration Program.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, now let's move on to 6.4, the report from our general manager.
All right, so I'll go to Sydney first on community engagement before I go into some other things.
Thanks, Jonathan. We have a number of things. The Compost Collective team is hosting a volunteer opportunity this Friday from 1 to 3 at St. Michael's. It's a super fun opportunity full of composting and garden activities. Then there will be a Fix-It Fair at the community center next Friday, May 19th from 12 to 3. This is an opportunity for residents to bring clothing, bikes, skateboards, surfboards, jewelry, or tech that needs fixing. And it's a great way to divert waste from landfill, just be more sustainable. And as mentioned, it is finally that time to host our final transportation workshop Wednesday, May 24th from 6 to 8 at the community center. We'll be bringing a project list based on the feedback we've gathered over the last year and a half from bike lanes to bus stops. We'll be discussing all forms of sustainable transportation projects in IV. Dinner and childcare will be provided along with an array of fabulous raffle prizes, and Spanish and Mandarin interpretation will also be available. The invite went out today, so just ask board and community members to help us spread the word. If board members are interested in being a facilitator or a note taker at the workshop, please let me know. The first one was such a hit that we are hosting another community-wide yard sale on Saturday, May 27th from 10 to 2. It's just another opportunity for residents to start getting items ahead of move out. And if someone doesn't have a yard to host, you can sign up to host it at the community center. I know the last one had the vintage market at the same time, but this one will be solely dedicated for yard sales. And then the IVB team has been going door to door, picking up unwanted items from people's doorsteps and donating them to local nonprofits and thrift stores to kind of help them get rid of items early. And people can sign up to do that on any day that's convenient for them. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. So Compost Collective, you've heard we're working a lot on the ad hoc committee. We're meeting pretty much weekly to work things out. We're making a lot of progress. I think getting to the root of different issues we have. So that's going really well. IV Safe, we have a meeting date and time and location for our first meeting is June 6th at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the IV Community Center. And what we heard from the last discussion was that Deltopia planning and fentanyl were two topics that the board wanted to see discussed. But if there's anything else, we still have another meeting between now and then to have another agenda item to look at other suggestions to have IV Safe discussed. And then we'll start testing this whole system of, reporting out and reporting in from the two. So that's June 6th. That's something to look forward to. I'm meeting with Chief Yao tomorrow or Thursday, actually, about the interpersonal violence investigator. And so then I need to have that meeting and get, the new cost for that. It should have gone to our finance committee in April, but we didn't have any information. He was on vacation. So our finance committee on Monday will meet to discuss the interpersonal violence investigator, the new project cost. On rental housing mediation, we are meeting with City of Santa Barbara to work out a referral system, which I don't know how we haven't done that since the beginning of the program, but we're going to do it. They reached out to us, so that's good. I think they've been getting calls to their program from people who live in IV. But that's really good. Referrals is the strongest way we get people to use the mental housing mediation program. So that's good news. Just wanted to note for everybody, Maya's on vacation right now, and she'll be back on Monday. So Sydney and I and her interns have been covering the many different parts of her job, and she set things up for us to work for the 2 weeks she was gone. But it's a good practice to have someone gone, and what do you do? We wrote guides for all our physicians. Here's what you can do when I'm gone, essentially. So we're testing that out. This is like the longest consecutive vacation anyone's taken at CSD, and I commend Maya for doing that, but it is a test.
Broken his leg.
Yeah, that's fine. Jacob, one of the promoted interns, he's been doing a great job. You know, we had an issue this morning. I called him and we got it resolved pretty fast. So things are good. Good news is the new general services director at the county has a new general services director, and his name's Kirk Largerquist. And he reached out to me about setting up a meeting very soon on the negotiations for these buildings. He did a site visit, checked them out, he's doing his own analysis. So that's good progress. Sydney mentioned the workshop for the STEP grant, and Marcus mentioned the meeting we had today. So both were good. We're just in transportation and parking mode, essentially at this point. The parking study, the data collection, we did our test run last 2 weekends ago. So that happened. It went really well. Sydney's meeting with Dixon already yesterday to plan out the community engagement timeline. And we're just waiting to get our reps from county and UCSB for our project committee, so we can actually start building out the project timeline with their investments, since they're paying so much. I think it's just so much is going on for everyone that it's just flying off the radar. But I will keep trying to get our committee going for that. But things are in the motions at this point with the parking study. We collect some data. We're planning our engagement. We're going to do most of the engagement in the fall, is the main conclusion from that meeting. We'll do some in the summer, but we'll focus it in the fall. Also for the STEP grant, we have cleared a backlog we've had for a while on grant reporting. It's very hard. Those grant reports we had no idea when we applied for the grant, and they are very tough. But we're caught up now. Well, now we have to do for the one for the last 3 months, but that's okay. That means we're caught up because those last 3 months just ended. But it's just a learning opportunity that grant reports are not a joke. And we know now. Next up on the libraries. So one thing our committee discussed, or I think I discussed it just with Director Aguilar, but one thing we're going to try to do for the next board meeting is have a outline our position on what we would like to see out of library services in IV. So we'll put something together that outlines what the committee's discussions have represented, so that the board can have an official policy position like that's clearly stated of what we want, because there's so much going on in this field right now. We also discussed that grant further, and I was working on it and Jordan was working on it. And as we got deeper into writing the grant, there was like a fork in the road. You could either have this very large project of millions of dollars that we had no plans for, or designs that didn't seem right to do out of nowhere, essentially. And then, or we could do a more limited scope project that did the essentials, but then we felt that would be cheap enough that it's more expedient to pay for it ourselves if we really wanted to do that. This is to have an in-person library branch, or location, not branch, at this building. However, there are no current plans to have a space like that to be operated too. So and even talking about, like, that's part of the grant requirements, is you have a plan to operate it. And until further notice, there isn't a plan right now. Like, we couldn't say that on May 16th that there's a plan for it. So there's no funding allocated. So we kind of put that to the side for now, and we'll look at other options in the future. And then Sibel and I got the 2021-2022 audit finally done, which we had to drag our auditors here from Santa Maria to make sure we got it done, because it's a deadline. It's almost been a year since that year ended. So we're going to get it done on time, but just letting you know, it is also the 5-year mark of having our auditor. So we might have to get a new auditor soon, because after 5 years, you want to switch them out so that they get too familiar with your systems. You want to bring someone new to be more critical for the next time. So if they've been with us since day one, so it'll be an interesting change to get a new person looking at our finances and processes.
Ask Carrie, she knows.
Yeah. Oh, Carrie, true.
Carrie,
I thought this Carrie.
Sorry.
She's a CPA too.
Well,
yeah, that's what we decided. I mean, we can keep them, but that's what the board decided back in 2017, 2018. That's it on my report.
All right, thank you very much for that report. And yes, so now we will move to our closed session. Section 5, item 5.1, the general manager annual performance and salary review.
So now
I was just.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. It is 9:36 p.m. We have returned from closed session, item 5.1, the general manager annual performance salary review. Go ahead, consult.
Okay, report out of closed session is the board of directors held the general manager's annual performance and salary review authorized under government code section 54957 subsection B1. The board provided feedback and discussed development goals moving forward for the next year in the near term to the general manager, and the board also directed district council to discuss contract revisions and amendments for the GM's contract to update it, since it has not been updated in some time. That will come back for future board consideration, but there's nothing else that's reportable out at this point.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Brandt.
I'd like to move that we set the general manager's compensation at $130,000 annually.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Brandt, a second by Topliff. Is there any public comment on this motion?
I just think I should have asked. We should clarify when the effective date is. Either like today or another date or next week.
Effective at the next pay period?
Let me see what pay period we're in right now. We just started the pay period, so you could make it effective yesterday for this pay period.
Effective yesterday is like what I'm putting in the motion.
Okay.
I'm accepting that.
Okay, hearing that motion, is there any members of the public who would like to comment on this motion? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. All directors who are in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All directors who are opposed, please say no. And the motion passes 6-0-0-1.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You're one of our awesome employees. Now we'll move to item 7, future meeting dates, future agenda items. The next regular meeting of the board of directors will take place on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. on Zoom and at Community Room 970 Embarcadero Del Mar, Isla Vista, California. We heard earlier about potential future agenda item regarding the Isla Vista library goals and ambitions. Do any other directors want to mention future agenda items to add to the list?
I just know in the past we've done a commemorative resolution for marking the anniversary of the tragedy on May 23rd. Seeing as that's on the meeting is, I'd be happy to work on bringing something forward.
I think we had it. I think it was mentioned. Yeah, it's on our list. We'll do that.
Happy to help with that.
And we had the finance committee. Well, we're gonna have finance committee next week, but I think there was a request to do all the funding requests as one list, kind of to go, because we've had them all as like different, individually, but having them all at one place. We can do that at the next meeting too. Report on.
Awesome. This will be an excellent idea. Dr. Craig.
Finance committee is Monday night like usual.
And policy is the next day. And yeah, so we have 2 committee meetings next week. Policy will be shorter than finance.
What's the call?
It's 6 on Tuesdays.
All right. Hearing those items and future plans, move on to section 8, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Move to adjourn. Freeman, second by Schultz. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Minutes. Oh, no. All right. Yeah. Urban is always the most awkward. There's no one.
You can technically just like.
You just call it. I see.
We were really, when we started out, like a little bit over formalized because we were worried. Yeah, Ross.
That's mine. Yeah, I have a big body.
That's not. Yeah, I feel like.
Hey, Marty.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite name, Mark?
Yeah.
It's funny because that is like. Sorry, Jay. No. So you might have a point too. I laughed though,